Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. This video is all about having endless summer basil. This is sweet basil. You can do this technique with any kind of basil. Basil comes in lime and lemon, cinnamon, purple, Thai, all different types. Same principles will allow you to have endless basil throughout the summer. A couple things to keep in mind. These are transplants that I started. You can certainly do this. It does make a big difference. A transplant, if you go to buy it at a store, it's going to be easily $3, $4, sometimes $5. So technically speaking, I don't know, there's about 36 basil plants here in transplants. That would be like $120. That's way too much money to spend on basil. Buy a pack of seeds, 2 pack of seeds. It's going to cost you, a couple of bucks, $6 if you buy a couple packs. They will last you the entire summer. They're going to last you the next year. So, in order to have endless basil, you have to keep it producing. A couple things you can do is you can start your own like I did, sitting in my greenhouse. They need a little bit of water. You can replant seeds. We'll be talking about that. But let's go out into the garden, and I want to show you how to keep the basil that's been growing in my garden now for a good 6-8 weeks, how to keep it growing. Let's start with flower identification and then the quick pinch. Where you start seeing your basil look like this, that's going to be a flower. And there's another one like right up here, another one over here. It's starting to flower. Quick pinch, you grab the stem with the flower on it, you follow it back to the sets of leaves, one right there by my thumb, one right there, and then you're just going to pinch out the flower right in the middle, and you remove it. That's removing the flower. That's going to keep the energy going to the leaves. Now, right here is the main stem that I took that flower head off of. Flowers are going to come out of here too, the 2 branches right here. So I also like to remove those. I just pinch this off from there and then pinch this other one off right there. That keeps the 2 leaves here. New leaves will form out of here. You could also go back down to here. You could go down to here if you want. It's really different ways to do it. But that's the quick pinch method. You're removing the flower, the main stem that's coming out of here, and you're leaving the basil to grow out of the joints. Here, let's do another example. We can take a look at this one. We see the flower head, and here's the stem with the flower head. We're going to take this all the way down to right in there, and I'm just going to pinch out the stem, I think. Hold on. There we go. Scissors are a little bit easier. And then I'm also going to remove the side shoots that are already there, because they're most likely going to be flowering soon. And I just leave it like that. New leaves will pop up from down at the bottom, like you see down there. Already deadheaded this one a while back. New leaves are going to come. You're slowing down the flower growth so that you get more leaf growth. Once the flowers start, I'll be talking about that. It really just changes the flavor of the basil. But you're just looking for the flower head, and you can just do the quick pinch right into the joint, and now you've removed the flower. Out of my garden, I'm growing basil everywhere. So one way to have an endless supply is just to keep growing it in different places. But you want to stagger the growth, stagger the seeding, stagger the transplants. We'll talk about this. This has been in, I don't know, since around May 1st. Today is June 26th, so it's been growing for quite a while. As basil grows, and I've already been deadheading this, it's going to produce flowers. Once your basil starts producing flowers, it really stops producing a lot of the leaves and puts all its energy into creating the flowers, which will become seeds. And it's just trying to continue its own life cycle. So it goes from the great tasting leaves to flower production. One way that you can maintain a nice growth of leaves and keep it going through the summer is to deadhead it. So a lot of people know what deadheading means, and they come out and they just remove the top flowers. That's great, and then I just throw that into the garden, let it decay there. But the top, usually quarter of the plant, is still trying to produce flowers. So even though we removed the main flower out of here, some more flowers are coming right out of here. You want to remove that, you want to remove that. But instead of, having to do 3 pinches here and search, go ahead, find a main stem that's producing, and then take it down further. You go all the way down, I don't know, you could go down from here down to the next joint down there and just break it off. And that's going to be your deadheading. Now you can still use this. Like I will take this, put all the cuttings that I take into a bowl. I'm going to pour white vinegar on it, let it seep, let the basil seep into vinegar for a day, and I'm going to just make basil vinegar. Sometimes you have so much basil you can't use it all right away, but you can certainly make a delicious, you know, vinegar infused basil or basil infused vinegar. But you don't have to just take the flower off at the top here. Take it down further into the plant. When it gets to be hot like this, again today it's June 26th, I've been getting heat for the last 2 weeks in the mid-90s. That's way too early here in Maryland, but you know, you got to deal with whatever you get. Come July 1st, that's when the heat typically comes, and I prune my basil down by a good third. So that's what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to show you how I do that. We'll do a before and after in a couple places. I have some more basil right over there that has lots of flowers on it. I'm going to take off a third of the plant. When July 1st rolls in, I like to put shade cloth over my basil. Still gets plenty of sun. I use a 50% or 70% shade cloth, meaning it blocks 50% of the sun or 70% of the sun. Basil does love the heat, but it doesn't like having the soil baked. When that soil temperature gets too high, it does change the flavor of the leaves, but more importantly, it tells the plant to create flowers. You want to cool this area off, and you're going to keep getting, you know, the tender, delicious leaves. So let's set this up for a complete pruning, and we'll do a couple before and afters, and then we'll get to transplanting some basil transplants and direct seeding some seeds. So here's one of the sections of the basil plants, and again, I'm going to go, you know, from the ground up here. I'm going to remove, you know, a third to a half of the plants, and I'm just going to go in. Let me actually just remove all of this, give you a little bit of a close-up. So what I'm going to do, make sure it's in the frame there, I'm just going to go from the top all the way down to where I see some leaves coming out like this, and I'm going to cut that out. So I'm going to leave this as the part that stays, you know, connected to the roots and stays in the ground, and I'm going to remove something like that. So I'm just going down right into, where am I going here? Right into the joint right here, and I'm snipping that off, and that's going to be how I make my cuts. So I'll keep all this basil again, and I'm just taking a look in there, taking about a third to a half of the plant, and just making some decisions on the cuts. This is going to come back. The leaves are going to come back strong. Again, let me take another plant, whole plant. So if this is the whole plant, looks like that. And I'm just following my way up. And then right in here, I'm going to be cutting out this part. Those are my first cuts. And then I'm going to look on this too, and I see that this branch is going up pretty high. I've got flowers up here, so I'm going to cut out that piece. And I would do the same thing. I'd look over here, see that there's flowers right there, give that a cut. And that's just how I shape the basil plant. Now, if I feel like this is too tall, just cut it off. Take this one straight down to about here and cut. Cutting it back harshly like this is just going to give the plant signals to send out leaves from these different areas coming right through here. After we're done, we're going to hit it with a little bit of a water-soluble fertilizer, but that's going to get this plant producing leaves again. You really want to get rid of the upper growth to really get rid of all the flowers. And right in here, I'll do the same thing. I'll just come down here, making sure that I'm taking off all the flowers. Let's just finish this up real quick. Let's take that down. Take that down. There are some flowers going to be starting right here and right here, and I want to get rid of those. Harsh. Now you can pretty much go in and just go like this. cut it in half. The plant is still going to survive, but you can, you know, make a little bit more precise cuts like I was trying to show you. But you're greatly reducing the size. You could put some shade cloth over this, hit it with your water-soluble fertilizer, and this is going to come back and regrow, and you're going to have beautiful, beautiful basil leaves that continue throughout the summer. Nice drastic cut. This is how much I took off the plant. This is all going to go into a bowl. I'm going to crunch it up, pour the white vinegar on there, let the basil seep in there for 24 hours. Then I'll pour the vinegar back into the bottle, and I'll have, you know, a basil vinegar. It's real easy to do, and it really does add that basil flavor, especially when you're going to use your salads. And I just want to stress again, like I was making the cuts down at the V's, down at the leaf joints here, that's another V, and the leaves are going to branch out. So that's the more precise cut, but you could really come in and just cut right across, cut off a third, half of the plant. Just get rid of all the flowers. This is going to continue to grow. The idea here is, as the tomato plants get bigger, they're going to cast the shade, keep it cooler. So I may not need the shade cloth. All right, let's go to another example. Just wanted to give you another example of just the precise cut in case you want to be more precise, have more precision with your cuts. After this, we're going to go through and give the next example, just a haircut right across the top. But you have the main stem right here coming out, and then it branches out. And as that stem here continues to grow, you see a leaf, the stem continues upward, and then right, just like tomato suckers, just right where the main stem is and the leaf, another group comes out, and it creates more leaves, and you can see a flower head starting. So all you're doing is you're coming up to the top, and you're going back to a joint, like down to here, and you're just cutting that out. And you remove that, that's where most of the flowers are. And then through here, I would see, okay, well, coming up this stem, there are flowers right up here. And the flowers are here. And then I go back to where the leaves are, to where my thumb is right there, and I would pinch that off. So I've removed, and I would do the same thing here. See that a flower is starting right up here. And I just go back to where the leaves are, where my two fingers are, go down the stem, and I pinch that out. And that's effectively removed a lot of the stem from right here that had a lot of flowers on it, and then I left these branches and then pinched it back to this joint. And that is more precision, and that's really more the proper way to do it. But now let's go and just give this a haircut right across. Here's another patch of basil growing in between my tomato plants, and you can see the masses of flowers. Now remember, before we were going down and getting to where the stem kind of falls right into a joint there, and then we cut it out. And that's what you're going to be leaving behind, something like that. If you don't want to do that, you can save yourself some time, and we're just going to cut across. Basil doesn't care that much. You just want to be getting rid of all the flowers, reducing this by about a third. I'll be using the leaves. I'll dry some of them, making the vinegar like I was telling you. You can freeze the leaves for future pesto. Just want to make sure I don't grab any of the tomato plants. And I've reduced the plants greatly by about a third, removed just about all the flowers. You want to get rid of every flower that you can find. A couple back here. And that's really going to help your basil continue to grow. By reducing the leaves during this period of high heat and the July heat coming, it helps slow the plant down, gets the signal that it should regrow leaves so that it can grow more flowers and it can create more seed. We just really want the leaves. The leaves still look good. We've interrupted flowers and seeds. The flavor should stay in the leaves. We should get more leaves. Coming in to inspect these, you can see where it's brown that I've pinched flowers off in the past, but you can really just cut across. You know, there's going to be no harm. The stems will just stay there. All in the joints, like right in here, new leaves will come up, more leaves will come up. You can see leaves forming down there from pinching this stem off before, a little bit earlier last week. Just cut everything back. You don't have to be precise. Again, all this basil is going to be coming indoors. This sets up this batch, this first wave of basil, to continue through the summer. Eventually, you know, it's going to wear out. You know, if you're lucky, you can keep this going for another good 4-6 weeks. Now, time to reseed and put in some transplants. The first thing we're going to do is put in some new transplants, and then we'll get to direct seeding. You don't have to start transplants if you don't want to. A couple of tips. I recommend starting your basil and any herbs, summer herbs that you're going to do, in larger containers. You could use yogurt containers. You can use these 2.5-inch cups. I sell these at my seed shop. You want to make sure that these do not sit in the direct sun, because it's going to dry them out, it's going to heat them up, and you're going to have problems getting decent germination. And if you do get germination very quickly, the sun beats down on here, heats it up, and kills the germinated seed. So put these, you know, somewhere where it gets morning sun and then shade comes, and you can grow your transplants that way. You want more shade actually when you have these outdoors, because 8 hours, 10 hours of sun beating down on here is going to mess up your transplants. I like to put in 3 or 4 seeds, making sure at least one seed comes up. If they all start, I just put them all in the ground. The other thing to keep in mind is that the root ball is only this big. So when we put them into the soil, no matter how soaked the rest of the garden is, this root ball is going to dry up very quickly for the first 7 to 14 days. So the sun will be hitting this great green growth. It's going to be pulling water out of here because that's only where the roots are. And then this plant can suffer, especially baking in the sun for 8 hours. So you want to water these at least once a day when the temperatures are 90 degrees Fahrenheit and warmer, at least once a day. And you want to do that for a good 7, 10, 14 days until the root system's spread out, and then your plant's going to be good to go. To prep the area, and I do the same exact prep for the seeds. Let's get rid of that wire. If you have compost, put some compost down across the top. If you don't have compost, any organic granular fertilizer works, as long as NP and K is represented. And I would take about a handful, I don't know, that's maybe like 3 tablespoons, and I would just scatter it in around there. The organic granular, it's going to be a slow, steady feed. The compost really sets the soil up to hold moisture. It's got NP and K that's immediately available to the plant. It's just beautiful stuff. We're also going to water this in when we're done with the water-soluble fertilizer. So once you have it in there, you're just going to mix this in a good 4 inches deep. Get in there, really loosen it up. That's great for the new transplant's roots. Everything's nice and loose. And then I'm just going to pop out a transplant, gently break up the roots, get them going in different directions, dig a hole, drop it in. Third one, same thing. Gently break it up, get the roots going in different directions. Dig a hole and press it in. And then we're going to go with the third one. Now this space, probably, you know, these 2 clusters is about right, but we're going to add in the third one. Need to get the shovel, dig that a little bit deeper there. Just make sure it's all broken up. And then we'll come back and water these in. This is my setup for the transplants. These younger plants are going to grow differently because they're in a different, you know, stage of growth. More focus on sending out side shoots, growing leaves, while the plants that we prune back, they will continue to give us leaves, but they're going to start kind of petering out. So you want to have your next wave coming in. So we have the first wave, second wave as transplants, third wave is going to be seeds. But before we get to that, especially with July rolling in, we want to put down some mulch. So I like using shredded hardwood. This will keep the soil cooler. It will also keep moisture in the soil, and it's really worth doing. Again, I like using double shredded hardwood. You could use grass clippings, you could use leaves, you can use whatever you really have, but you want to just put that down, and this is going to set up the basil for success. In this area, I'm going to put down some lemon basil, and it really does taste like lemon. I'm going to take, it's going to be hard to see, my hands are dirty, I don't know, that's probably 6 or 8 seeds, just something like that, and that's all going to go into a little planting space. First thing, loosen up the soil, put down your compost if you have it. That's really the best stuff that you can use. Some organic granular, use less here. You don't want seeds sitting directly on here, that could be a problem. It's rare, but don't overdo it with the organic granular. Just scatter it across the top, mix everything in well. For seeds, I really like using the water-soluble fertilizer, and just mix everything together well, a good 4 to 6 inches deep, and just make sure that organic granular is spread out through everything. Break up any clumps. I like to press the base down a little bit so the seeds don't get washed down when I water them. And then I'm going to do 3 groups. Little depression there, little depression there, little depression there. And I'm just taking 4, 6, 8 seeds, something like that, and just sprinkling them right into that space, right into that space, right into that space, and then covering them over. You don't want to put mulch down on top of this. That will inhibit the ability of the seeds to germinate. You just want the soil showing. When the plants get about this tall, like the transplant, you can bring the mulch in. But that's my 3rd wave of basil. This method, pruning back your early basil significantly, putting in some transplants, and then doing some direct seeding, is going to allow you to have basil throughout the summer. It's only the 26th of June. On August 1st, I will put in some more seeds somewhere, but with all this basil breaking out the shade cloth in July, my basil will continue really all the way until the frost comes and takes it. I've done this for several years now. It's really, really effective. This is the cheapest way to grow basil. Paying $3, $4, $5 for a transplant is really expensive. I do recommend getting a pack of seeds. You can direct seed. The basil grows really quick. You can start them in yogurt cups, like I told you, on the side of the house that gets morning sun, or even on a windowsill until they germinate, and then you bring them outside, put them again in a place that gets morning sun or later afternoon sun, but it doesn't get baked by sun for 8 or 10 hours. You'll grow beautiful basil transplants. And here's a tip to make it easier on you. So we put the 3 groups right here. You could do another 3 up here. I don't want them all there. But rather than, popping the seeds in all over the garden and having to remember where they are and come back and water them, you can use this space as an area to grow your basil. And then when these get to size, I'm just going to take the shovel, go down nice and deep, and then just lift up the whole root ball. And this is a way to kind of grow transplants that you can put throughout the garden. So now I have 6 groupings in here. I only want 3. The other 3 are going to get moved to other areas. Water it in with the water-soluble fertilizer. I recommend AgroThrive. I'm affiliated with them. You can find them in the video description. So just give it a good soaking. And for your seeds and your transplants, you're going to want to water at least every day. Every other day if you have some trouble doing it. But if it's hot and no rain every day, for a good 7, 10, 14 days, let these get established. You don't want them to dry out. The sun coming and baking down for 8 or 10 hours can really dry out that top 2 inches of soil, and it can damage your germinating seeds. All right, let's go over to the other plants that we put into the ground and that we pruned. The original plants that we pruned are going to get a big drink. I'm not going to fertilize these again because they're in the ground. Just want to show you how much I'm giving them. Just a really good drink of the water-soluble. That's going to be plenty for the next really 30 days and beyond. You don't have to give them more than that. Here are the other ones that we pruned. They're going to get a big drink too. You don't have to put a whole gallon on each plant. Just give it, a good amount through all of them, and these guys are going to be good to go. And finally, the transplants, going to give them a really big drink. They were getting thirsty in the greenhouse. And notice I'm really just watering where the root ball is. I could put more water-soluble all around here. It'll be great for the tomato plants, but it's not going to get to these plants to start. You want to make sure you're hitting the root ball of your transplants with water just about every day. Again, if it's hotter, definitely every day. If it's a little bit cooler, every other day. If you're getting rain, okay, maybe skip a day. You get the idea. You just got to make sure that you keep these moist for that 10 to 14 days. Thanks so much for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com, and please subscribe. I'll teach you how to grow food, save some money, and have some fun. Thanks for watching.